Welcome to the first of our writing webinar series for elementary teachers, Just Write. And that is what the goal is, to get students to write as painlessly as possible for both you and them. Students become better writers by simply writing. The goal of this webinar is to give an overview of why, what it looks like, and how it might work in your classroom. And hopefully along the way we dispel some common misconceptions. So let's jump into this first webinar with a few reasons that teachers should encourage writing for their students. One question that often brings discussion is why write? Many teachers see writing as too overwhelming for younger elementary students and often time-consuming for upper elementary. You may even think to yourself, we hope, is it worth the trouble? The answer is a resounding yes. Writing isn't meant to be blood, sweat, and tears. The benefits of writing in elementary school support three major areas for students: academic development, emotional development, and social development. The first area, academic development, utilizes critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Learning the writing process from outline to finished product translates into other aspects of life and learning. Writing about the world is also important for vocabulary and reading development. The second area writing benefits is emotional development. Writing is a personal experience and gives many students a voice they might not otherwise be able to find. A report by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services points out that when parents separate or children must deal with bullies, loss of a pet, or other types of stress, writing can provide a therapeutic outlet to help them cope. As an elementary teacher, writing provides insight into children that you may not find anywhere else. One important thing to remember is, due to the personal nature of writing, ensure and respect a student's wishes as when to share with others, especially if it's personal in nature. And lastly, writing benefits students' social development. Real-world connections to both writing on and off the page are critical to show students how they connect with the world they live in. Since writing requires the student to consider audience and purpose, practice can help the students apply the same considerations to verbal communication. The writing process allows students to learn from each other. Creating these environments at a young age teaches students to both accept and deliver constructive criticism. As research continues to show the importance of social and emotional development for children, writing is an excellent conduit to help students and teachers to also process emotions, situations, as well as relationships. Let's get a little more in-depth at the benefits and some targeted strategies you can use to create a climate of better success for your young writers. Students who develop strong writing skills at an early age acquire a valuable tool for learning, communication, and self-expression. These skills can be developed through effective writing instruction practices that provide adequate time for students to write. So you need to provide daily time for students to write. It doesn't need to be hours and hours, but by having students begin to write something daily, it gives it a priority as well as develops much needed skills in other areas. Writing is a process through which students communicate thoughts and ideas. We want to teach students to use the writing process for a variety of purposes. Writing is a highly complex cognitive and self-directed activity driven by the goals writers set for what they want to do and say and the audience for whom they are writing. But ultimately, writing will be read by readers, so we want to teach students to become fluent with handwriting, spelling, and sentence construction. Wouldn't it be wonderful if all students came to our classrooms with this? But alas, they don't. Students do need that direct instruction and repetition in these skills to become fluent. To meet these goals, writers must skillfully and flexibly coordinate their writing process from beginning to end. Many of us see writing as a deeply personal and private experience, and it is, but no man is an island. Teachers need to create an engaged community of writers for support. Let's look at what daily time and these other tools look like in the classroom. Students learn by doing. Therefore, to become effective writers, students need daily opportunities to learn and practice writing skills, strategies, and techniques. Writing practice also can be integrated into instruction in other content areas like science and social studies to help provide students with additional time to write. Students need to think carefully about their purpose for writing, planning what to say, and how to say it. Providing adequate time for students to write is one essential element of an effective writing instruction program. However, recent surveys of elementary teachers indicate that students spend little time writing during the school day. Students need dedicated instructional time to learn the skills and strategies necessary to become effective writers, as well as time to practice what they learn. Time for writing practice can help students gain confidence in their writing abilities. As teachers observe the way students write, they can identify the difficulties and assist students with learning and applying the writing process. Teachers can help students become effective writers by teaching a variety of strategies for carrying out each component of the writing process and by supporting students in applying the strategies until they are able to do so independently. Over time, students will develop a repertoire of strategies for writing. Teachers should explain and model the fluid nature in which the components of the writing process work together, so that students can learn to apply strategies flexibly, separately, or in combination when they write. Students also should learn that writing is used for a variety of purposes, such as conveying information, making an argument, providing a means for self-reflection, sharing an experience, enhancing understanding of reading, or just for providing entertainment. Learning how to write well for different purposes is important not only for success in school, but also for active participation in professional and social lives. Teachers should begin by teaching students the different purposes for writing and how specific genres or forms of writing defined by specific features can help students achieve their writing goals. When students understand the connection between different genres and writing purposes, they may be more likely to use different genres and think more critically about how to structure their writing. Students also must learn to adjust their writing to be most effective for their intended readers. Examples of good writing and techniques for writing in specific genres can help students write more effectively for different purposes and audiences. So now let's get on to the nitty-gritty of basic writing skills. When basic writing skills become relatively effortless for students, they can focus less on these basic skills and more on developing and communicating their ideas. However, younger writers must typically devote considerable attention to acquiring and polishing these skills before they become proficient. Problems with basic writing skills have an impact on the quality of a person's writing. Spelling skills can affect the words students choose because they may be less likely to use words they cannot spell. Students also need to be able to generate strong, interesting sentences that vary in length and complexity in order to convey their intended meaning and engage readers. When a student's writing contains spelling mistakes and poor handwriting, it can be difficult for the reader to understand what the student is trying to convey. Early writing instruction should begin with demonstrations of how to hold a pencil comfortably between the thumb and forefinger, resting on the middle finger. Although many students will alter this grip over time, a comfortable pencil grip is necessary in order to avoid fatigue, which can discourage students from writing. Teachers also should show young writers the most efficient and legible ways to form each letter, regardless of whether print or cursive script is used. Younger students may have a tendency to draw rather than to write letters, using more strokes than necessary to replicate the letter. A relatively small number of words account for 80% of the words elementary grade students use in their writing. Teachers should help students learn to spell words they commonly use. You should connect spelling instruction with writing as much as possible. Students should be encouraged to learn words they frequently misspell, as well as words they wish they could include in their writing. However, don't let spelling influence the word choices they make completely. While it is important for students to learn to quickly spell frequently used words, it is also important for them to branch out in order to increase vocabulary. Students need instruction on how to use a variety of sentence structures in their writing. Sentence instruction moves students from writing with a series of simple sentences to including more complex and interesting sentences in their compositions. For example, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. Sentence instruction, therefore, should include teaching students a variety of sentence types and demonstrating how to use them. Teachers should model how the ability to write affects their daily lives, demonstrates the importance of writing to communicate, model the perseverance required to create a good piece of writing, and express the satisfaction that can come from creating a meaningful text. For example, you could draft a letter or an email to a friend in front of your students, thinking out loud to make the invisible act of composing, which occurs internally for experienced writers, more visible to students. You could also collaborate with all your students on a writing project, such as composing a how-to guide for carving a Halloween pumpkin or writing a class newsletter. You can also take part in writing assignments. For instance, if students are asked to describe a favorite family tradition, you could offer yours as an example, actively conveying how selecting a topic one is interested in can generate excitement about writing. Students need both the skill and the will to develop as writers. You need to establish a supportive environment in the classroom to foster a community of writers who are motivated to write well. In a supportive writing environment, you will participate as writers, not simply instructors, to demonstrate the importance of writing. By taking part in writing lessons and activities, you're conveying the message that writing is important, valued, and rewarding. Just like on long car rides, are we there yet? Students often ask about writing. Why do I have to do this? Because it takes them out of their comfort zone. Though it may seem like a great time to tell them about all of the social, emotional, and academic benefits, most students are really asking about the purpose. There are many purposes for writing, like getting a driver's license, filling out a job application, creating a resume, expressing your feelings, organizing your thoughts, passing a class, getting into college, or getting a job. I could go on and on and on. Writing is thinking on paper. The writer Flannery O'Connor said, "I write because I don't know what I think until I read what I say." Writing to learn and writing to demonstrate learning are two important aspects of writing in school. Generally, writing to learn activities are short, informal writing tasks that help students think through key concepts or ideas presented in class. Often these writing tasks are limited to less than 5 minutes of class time, or they're assigned as brief out-of-class assignments. Writing to learn can take the form of learning logs, exit or admit slips, and note-making. When writing to demonstrate learning, students show what they have learned by processing information and explaining or applying their understanding of concepts and ideas. Students write for an audience with a specific purpose. Examples might include answers to open response questions and summaries of reading or of an activity that they just completed. Writing is a basic form of communication that is necessary to succeed in life, and writing is critical to becoming a good reader. Writing opens the doors to education and career opportunities. If we want all students to learn to write well, we must design writing assignments that excite students' interest. Assignments that allow students to select topics that they are interested in and that allow them to write to real, authentic audiences that they truly want to speak to. Nothing motivates students more than having a real audience. When students know that their writing has a real purpose in the world, they care about their writing and they work harder at the craft of writing. Teachers can create a sense of audience for their students in many ways. You can require students to read their work to the class after publication, or create an evening event where, in addition to sharing stories with their peers, students also share them with their families. You can create blogs for students to write on and share their work with the world, or put it up on a bulletin board outside the classroom with the title Student Writing. Another such audience is writing to other students. For years, students have exchanged letters with other students both locally and internationally. Students also like to write letters to authors and actors and family members. When there is a live audience, students are eager to write. The advantage of authentic writing goes far beyond simply motivating students. It also helps students develop real-world writing skills that they will need when they're no longer writing in school. It's important to provide students with a purpose and an intended audience. Fake writing, or writing that doesn't seem to have a purpose, does not encourage students to work at their writing. When students have an authentic audience, they know that there is power in their words and that they can be heard. So we've discussed some basic tenets in motivation, but let's look at how to get started in the writing process. So let's look at an overview of the writing process. Future webinars will discuss these in detail, but I just want you to know these 5 elements. They are pre-writing, writing, revising, editing, and publishing. Let's look at this writing process in another way. This diagram is a clear example of the recursive nature of the writing process. Too often, the process is presented as a linear lockstep process which violates the very nature of writing. Reading and writing are reciprocal processes, each developing fluency in the other. You may have noticed in this slide that something has been added, the responding piece. Students need feedback, especially in elementary school. Feedback can be informal or formal, lengthy or brief, but students need that feedback to gain confidence in early writing. Many teachers may hesitate to give their feedback, and in the past they haven't because of fear of stifling the writer's process, but think back to your college days. Would you rather have had a professor give you some constructive feedback before you published and shared your paper? So by adding this step in more complex writings, time will actually be saved when you redirect students before they are finished. There is nothing more disconcerting than turning in something you have diligently worked on to find that the target has been missed. If you are new to the writing process, one good way to get started is a specific approach where the components of the writing are instructed. There are many thoughts, but one of the best is direct writing instruction through focus lessons. This will benefit your students. One such approach is called Writing Workshop that has proven successful in elementary schools. The name workshop is a signal to the truth that writing takes work. Writing Workshop is a place where writers construct something new. Writing Workshop is designed for use in all grade levels. Students have a large amount of choice in their topic and style of writing. The teacher acts as a mentor author, modeling writing techniques and conferring with students as they move through the writing process. Direct writing instruction takes place in the form of a focus lesson at the beginning of each workshop and is followed by an active writing time. Each workshop ends with a sharing of the student work and/or strategies. Writing Workshop is focused on the goal of fostering lifelong writers. Teachers must demonstrate and instruct in what good writers do. Here is a sample of class time spent on sample focus lesson. Some of you may be saying, wait, didn't you say it wouldn't take hours and hours? So just like preparing a new recipe, it takes time to learn the words, find the right ingredients, and learn the methods best used to prepare. It isn't any different in writing. To prepare something great, we must equip children for the final product, but we have to give them the tools to use. So it's critical for students to write regularly and to have daily instruction in writing. The focus lesson or mini lesson functions to connect the topic of the lesson to previous lessons. It explicitly names what's new that's going to be part of the learning. It teaches one important concept that will make a student's writing better. It engages students by having them talk to a partner or examine their own writing for evidence of the concept. And it will link others by encouraging students to try out the strategy in their writing that day or to add it to their toolbox for later. Examples of focus lessons include teaching students about process, such as developing ideas, drafting, revising, and editing, or focusing on text formats, mentor text, and cross-curricular writing, or even lesson rubrics for assessment, or writing on demand as in high-stakes testing. The next webinars in this series will give you some ideas and help you create some focus lessons based on the Writing Workshop model. For now, the goal is to create not only better writers, but independent writers. The gradual release model is broadly recognized as a successful approach for moving classroom instruction from teacher-centered whole group delivery to student-centered collaboration and independent practice. Sometimes you hear it referred to as the I do, we do, you do it. This model proposes a plan of instruction that includes demonstration, prompt, and practice. This graphic from the work of Doug Fisher and Nancy Fry take the model a step further by defining the specific stages in greater detail. Taken as a whole, the triangles represent the mentoring relationship and two-way interaction between the student and teacher. At the beginning of a lesson or when new material is being introduced, the teacher has a prominent role in the delivery of the content. This is the I do phase. But as the student acquires the new information and skills, the responsibility of learning will shift from teacher-directed instruction to student processing activities. In the we do phase of learning, the teacher continues to model, question, prompt, and cue students, but as students move into the you do phases, they rely more on themselves and less on the teacher to complete the learning task. Students learn the forms and functions of writing as they observe and participate in writing events that are directed by knowledgeable writing teachers, particularly when these events are followed by opportunities for exploration during independent writing. Effective literacy teachers present the demonstration, explanation, and models needed by student writers in order for them to understand how and why to incorporate genre and text structures, such as transcription skills as punctuation and spelling, into their own writing behavior. When clear and targeted modeling of the ways in which writers work is presented by teachers and co-constructed with students during collaborative, rich discussion, learners develop understanding of the purposes, intrinsic motivation, and the techniques of writing. Modeled writing can be used whenever you want to motivate writing, teach any objective related to process or craft, or introduce a new genre or assignment. Very simply, it is showing, not telling, at its finest. The teaching is still explicit. Start by explaining what you are doing, why you are doing it, and how you are doing it, and then go on to model it, thinking aloud as you engage in writing right in front of your students. It might seem a little scary at first, but it's worth it. Modeled writing can be used to work on short or long-term goals. For example, you might use modeled writing as one of your first short-term techniques for inspiring students to write about something from their lives. Later, you might use modeled writing in support of your long-term goal of demonstrating specifics about compare and contrast pieces. To begin modeling for your students, start by telling students the idea that you are going to write about. Discuss your intended audience and purpose, whether it's to learn, inform, entertain, or persuade. Then quickly jot notes on a piece of chart paper or pre-write in another form like a short web, a list, or an outline. You then begin crafting your piece in draft form. Write for just a few minutes. Read and reread your text. Make changes and fix any errors you notice as you go. Refer back to your pre-writing as you proceed. Think aloud as you write. Finally, explicitly debrief with students and then ask them, what specifically did you see me do as a writer? Talk through where you're headed next and add to your piece. Remember, think aloud as you go. Modeled writing can occur as a series of ongoing focus lessons, each lasting about 10 minutes, or it may take several consecutive days to complete the experience. Modeling writing through write-alouds and shared writing allows students to engage in and focus on the writing process. Write-alouds are taught to small groups or a whole class in short focused lessons. You would prepare the lessons by writing your own short text. Tell your students you will be sharing your own thinking with them as you write, and ask students to pay close attention to the decisions you make as you write and remind them that they will be producing the same type of text themselves. When you have completed the write-aloud for a short text, ask students to comment on what they noticed about your thinking during the activity. Ask students to talk about what seemed to be most important to accomplish as you were writing. Similar to writing aloud, shared writing can cover a wide variety of forms, purposes, and genres. The text can serve a specific purpose governed by what is going on currently in the classroom, or the teacher and students can brainstorm and negotiate these decisions together. Some possible topics and forms include a narrative describing a recent event in the class, a retelling of a favorite story, process writing describing how a project unfolded and what was learned, a summary of a reflection on a book read as a class, a list of types of entries that could go into a writer's notebook, and so forth. Compositions can be short and completed in one session, or they can be longer and extended over several sessions. The purpose of shared writing is to model the thought process involved in writing and allow the students to engage in and focus on the process. The teacher, acting as scribe, frees students from that aspect of the writing process so that they can focus exclusively on the thinking involved in writing. Shared writing is also a powerful method for direct teaching of key skills and concepts needed in the writing process. These will also be discussed in more depth in coming webinars in this series. So as we continue our webinar series on elementary writing, the hope is to impart enough information so that you can implement an effective writing program that works in your classroom. The next webinar in the series will focus on pre-writing, planning, and getting started. Just like for our students, it can seem like a daunting task. By breaking the writing process down into clear, concise steps, it can and will be doable. The biggest hurdle can sometimes be to just get going. This webinar has strived to give you an overview of what a specific writing program might look like in an elementary classroom, but the heart of it is up to you, the teacher. There will be many variations based on student age, ability levels, prior knowledge, comfort level, and even classroom culture. The best way to be a better writing teacher is to gain knowledge, which you are doing, prepare students, and then to start just right.